Video games are one of my favorite forms of art. They combine music, art, challenge, and most uniquely, player choice into the mix to create an experience that's unlike any other art form. I've been playing them ever since I was young, and I still continue to be surprised by them to this day. As the industry continues to grow, developers have started experimenting with new types of games, and there's plenty of content being put out there for us to dive into. But what makes a game special? Well, there's many factors that lead up to it, the simplest being great art style or soundtrack. It's when these pieces work together in harmony that makes a game truly special, and can leave memories that last longer than just a few hours you've played it. But not every game quite lives up to these standards. Repetitive gameplay, grinding, and most notoriously, pay to win, can ruin the immersion even in otherwise good games. But not everywhere is like this, and if you know where to look, you can find some truly amazing games out there. And that's why I like games so much. They're a place where you can tell your own story, forge your own path through this amazing world that people have created for you, to explore at your own pace. Like any other art form, no one is going to have the same journey through a game that you have. And that feeling is so special. There's a wide variety of choices in video games, from just picking which path of the story you want to follow to fully open world titles where anything you do is up to you. But the whole art form is built on choice, and it's what makes video games so special. Knowing that it's your story, it's the path you follow through this other world. So, without further ado, here are 5 games that changed my life. The first game on this list, in 5th place, Undertale is what we call an indie RPG developed by Tobyfox, working partly in collaboration with their sister, Temmie. It's the story of a human who falls underground into a world full of monsters, very different but also very similar to themselves in a lot of ways, and they have to try to work their way through to get home. You only really get one choice in the game, and it's how many people you want to kill, or how many people you want to spare and become friends with instead. And it has a wide variety of different outcomes based on exactly who you become friends with or not. To get the game's happiest ending, you have to go through the game without killing anyone, even people that might really piss you off. I restarted the game to try to film content for this video, but after I had gotten this ending, one of the characters begged me not to reset the game, to instead let them enjoy their happy ending forever. And so I wandered in the game's epilogue instead. It's the fact that the game knows exactly what you're doing and will make you feel incredibly guilty for bad choices and very rewarded for good ones that makes it so special. Plus it has an awesome soundtrack and very, very good character design, especially humorous ones like this dude. And by humanizing every character, it speaks to the Apotheosis message the game's trying to get at. The game actually makes you have to think about those people, and this is part of what makes it so special. And although I would never recommend playing the game's genocide route, it does have some very interesting lore that players have found out from doing so, including a whole creepypasta buried in the game. Undertale is an indie phenomenon, and it deserves the success that it earned, for its excellent character design, soundtrack, and lore. And I can't say I've ever been more proud of running away from fights than this game. Undertale earns the spot for how special of a game and phenomenon it is. And with that said, we'll move on to number 4, a game you'll probably recognize whether you're a gamer or not. Minecraft is another phenomenon of a game, for how completely open world it is. The heart of it is a survival game. You have to get food and get enough tools to help yourself survive against the game's many hostile mobs that await in the darkness. But it's also so much more. It's one of the first few games to use an advanced crafting system, where you take items and put them into your inventory, merging them together to form other items out of old existing materials. It encourages the player to explore and gather new materials from different interesting biomes, forcing them underground to obtain rare ores, and even into other dimensions to obtain later game content. One of these dimensions is very interesting. The Nether is full of lava, and now apparently a lot of pigs that want your gold. But also some of the most dangerous mobs in the game that you have to face. Its progression is very quirky and strange, but it's worth talking about since it is one of the first few games to do a crafting system like this. And discovering its progression for the first time is pretty thrilling. And the structures in the game are exciting to explore, the few that there are, especially as you near the end game. There's a really interesting and ominous set of catacombs surrounding an old abandoned portal. And once you light up the portal and enter, you get to face the game's final boss. And while the combat in Minecraft isn't great, at least the boss fight has some interesting ideas. Although it is brutally hard and very punishing, especially with these idiots. And if you ever die at any point in the journey, it's unfortunately back to square one. Unless you used a bed, which I didn't. Shh, it's fine. It's a mediocre game. The combat could be better and it does get very grindy. But, luckily, this isn't all that Minecraft's about. Minecraft is actually so much more than just its survival mode. Try out the game's creative mode, where you're invincible and can take flight. The sky's the limit in this mode, with infinite access to all of the game's items. You can mess around in its sandbox as much as your heart desires, or build massive structures using the game's exciting building block set. If that's not enough for you, try out multiplayer. Minecraft's multiplayer is amazing, as people have gotten together to form massive collections of minigames and challenges for players to face. And as much as some people think so, the game is not dead. The developers Mojang continue to push out updates, like one recently that released on my birthday, that gave Minecraft a huge dark underbelly that's a thrill and terror to explore. And it's even better with friends, shushing each other and trying not to alert the game's most terrifying mob. Oops. The entire area is sound-based, so you have to be as quiet as you can to try not alert the monster in this area. It's a complete thrill, and it's amazing that the game is still being updated almost 10 years after its release. Yeah, Minecraft's 10 years old, that's hard to believe. But with a massive amount of content being pushed out by the game's developers, server builders, YouTubers, and maybe even you, it's a game that's not going anywhere, and that's what's amazing about it. The fact that one singular game is being used to share so many millions of stories is what's amazing about Minecraft. It's not just a game, but a set of tools to create your own story, and that's what's so amazing about it. It's the kind of game that always pops back into my life one way or another, and that's why it deserves to be on this list. And with enough said, it's time for number 3. Hollow Knight is definitely the hardest game on this list, but a lot of its charm comes from its difficulty. You play as an adorable little bug in an insectoid world filled with much larger and more dangerous creatures. And at first all you're doing is exploring this abandoned kingdom, trying to figure out what your purpose is. And for your first few hours, you don't know very much. The game gives a long time for the gameplay to settle in before it launches you into its story. And it's lucky that it has amazing gameplay to keep players hooked. Hollow Knight is built around a Metroid-like formula, where you're in an open map and you can explore, unlocking abilities as you go that then let you reach new areas of the map that you hadn't previously been able to before, and making existing areas less dangerous. It's a satisfying gameplay loop, and it's filled with incredible level design. In addition, it combines 2D platforming with thrilling real-time sword combat. And as someone fascinated by sword combat in real life, I can say that this game completely nailed the feeling. But let's talk about the soul of this game, and that is, well, your soul. What makes the game's combat so thrilling is that every time you hit an enemy with your nail, you're rewarded with some soul, this game's mana, which is used for both casting spells to deal extra damage and consuming to heal you. This way, you have two methods of play, either aggressively, spending a lot of your soul to do damage, or playing cautiously and trying to find heal phases. And learning to utilize this force well will let you beat some of the game's toughest bosses. From an incredible world, solid platforming, and thrilling boss fights, this game's gameplay is just a complete joy. And if you're able to overcome the game's difficulty, you'll start to piece together the story bit by bit. A special moment in this game that I want to talk about is about a third of the way in, and its previously mysterious mood starts to give way to something emotional instead. Welcome to the City of Tears, Hollow Knight's turning point and the amazing soundtrack you're hearing right now. This area is just beautiful. Abandoned skyscrapers reach towards the ceiling where water pours down onto the streets below, and whispers of a fading but not hopeless world drift through the air. It's here where you learn about your actual objective in this world. At least the 3 seals that need to be lifted in order to go where you're trying to go. How exactly you do that, you'll find out later. And I won't spoil it in this video, but it is a very interesting side of the game. Trying to go after the seals will lead you to some of the newer and darkest areas of the game, especially one in particular, a proper dark underside that you have to conquer. You know, I think we're starting to see a pattern here. But even after you conquer all 3 seals, there's more to the game, and even after beating the game, there's more to the game, with several different endings and optional challenges that you can choose to face, like boss rushes. There is a lot of content in this game, with thrilling fights and emotional moments that may or may not have made me cry, and I think this game has well earned its spot on this list. And with enough said, we move on to game number 2. Journey is exactly what it sounds like. It's simply the game of getting from point A to point B. But as you travel, you begin to understand the secrets of this long-forgotten world that you're exploring, and perhaps even your place in it if you have one. There are so many mysteries that shroud the game, and with no actual in-game dialogue, you discover the story for yourself. But in addition to that, it's also loads of fun with an incredibly satisfying movement system. Finding secret runes in the desert will upgrade your scarf, which then allows you to fly using your cloak. The more runes you get, the longer you can fly for, and the faster you get through the journey. It's an incredibly simple, yet efficient and rewarding system, and is also heightened by the game's thrilling sand surfing, and even a few stealth sequences. But that's not the main thing going for the game. The main thing is its incredible artistic side. Its music and world are so enthralling, and the color choices are always spot on. It's one of the most beautiful forms of art I've ever seen. And the fact that you get to explore it at your own pace is really, really satisfying. One aspect of Journey I was not expecting was multiplayer. Upon entering a new area of the map, you have a good chance to get into a multiplayer server with one other player. And if you enter the map at the same time as another player, you'll stay with them, making it possible to both play with friends and an entire run with a random stranger. Not only is the multiplayer cool, it's also a core part of the game. A lot of the game speaks about the power of 2, and going with another player gives you a gameplay advantage to represent this too, allowing you to recharge your flight whenever you hug your friend, and it's really sweet and amazing. But it also becomes very important in later areas that limit your mobility, and the only way to recharge your cape is with another player. Another aspect of the game that completely threw me for a loop was I was not expecting it to have stealth. But no, the dark underbelly of this world holds mechanical terrors, and you have to be as stealthy as possible if you want to keep your flight-giving scarf game's final area pits everything against you. Extreme wind and cold make it incredibly hard to traverse, all while dodging threats from above. And reaching the mountain that's always been looming in the distance feels so satisfying. I didn't realize at first, but after looking at names of the soundtrack, I realized that this game is all an allegory to the narrative structure of the hero's journey, and my mind was blown. Journey is a beautiful game, and even though the actual game is only 2 to 3 hours long, every minute of it is handcrafted. And I found myself wanting to linger around and just take in the sights more often than not. And you know what? I think I feel brave enough to call this game perfect. I tried looking for flaws, but really, there's nothing I can complain about. And it's really reassuring to have this world I can return to anytime I feel down or want a nostalgia trip. I guess life really is about the journey, and this game reminds us about that. And now, drumroll for what I think might be the best game of all time. And that's a bold statement considering I already called Journey a perfect game. But here it is, the game that has had the most impact on my life. Outer Wilds. On the surface, it's a sci-fi mystery, and a good one. But more importantly, the game is the biggest emotional roller coaster I've ever been on. Welcome to Timber Hearth, your new home. The first thing you do when you wake up is roast a marshmallow, of course, because why not? Then, you figure out that you're an astronaut, and it's your first day going to space. Are you terrified? Are you excited? You get to decide these things as you wander around the village, which is a tutorial perfectly disguised as your hometown. And when you're ready, you visit the museum and receive the launch codes and get on your way. And with no objective that you know of, it's completely up to you to figure out the mysteries of this world. As you explore, you start to fall in love with the solar system a little bit, or at least I did. Each planet has a very unique atmosphere, and it's very interesting to explore each one. There's the Hourglass Twins, a planet cleverly named after an hourglass because of its falling pillar of sand connecting the two, slowly burying the caverns of one planet and uncovering the city on the other. There's Brittle Hollow, a shell of a planet that slowly cracks away to reveal a black hole at the center. Giant's Deep, a storm planet, with massive tornadoes that can pick up islands and throw them into orbit. The physics of the solar system are a little bit unique, but once you figure out the rules of it, everything starts to come together. At first though, you'll likely be very confused why this planet is a lot bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Why does this one disappear whenever you try to land on it? Or how can a signal discovered by the Nomai supposedly be older than the universe itself? And how, or if you find out, is up to you. The ruins of an ancient civilization are all over the solar system. And as the first Hearthian with a tool that's able to translate their language, you might be the first one to understand what happened to these people. Where did they come from, and where did they go? Perhaps you'll try to look for the other astronauts, or the one that went missing. The solar system is yours to explore, so figure everything out at your own pace. And as you explore the solar system, you'll run into even more mysteries that the Hearthians had no idea about. If you run out of content in the base game, try out the DLC that turns the game into a horror game with an entirely new area. That's one of the game's, if not all games, best. And eventually, you'll die. Maybe after 2 minutes, maybe after 20, but it's going to happen at some point. Because this is a dangerous universe. And this game gets out of control fast if you're not careful. There are so many ways to die. Graffiti, oxygen, drowning, burning, crushed by sand, or even poked by a cactus. And if you survive long enough, maybe something else instead. But it's going to happen. And that's okay. Because when it does, something new happens. And everything you know comes flooding back to you. Because not only is this a sci-fi game, it's also a time loop game. And now, the mysteries of this universe are even more grand. all the way back until you're right back where you started, at the campfire, going into space for the first time. Tell the locals, they'll think you're crazy. But for some reason, you remember everything. And there's nothing really left for you to do but try again. Outer Wilds is a time loop game done perfectly well, using the nature of video games to make commentary on the nature of life. And I'll resist the urge to spoil the game's ending, but it is the strongest emotion I have ever felt. The game turns everything you know about it on its head, and forces you into one of the most stressful situations ever, and then rewards you with something that genuinely feels amazing. The game is beyond perfect. It's one of the few moments I've really felt alive and like an actual hero. And yeah. Life can be hard, especially living in a thankless world, where there's so many that one individual feels very worthless. And maybe that's why I like games so much, because for once, your choices matter, and you can finally feel that sense of wonder that we all long for. Yeah, I guess that's why I have so many memories. These games made me feel not alone for once, like a part of something, and I guess that's all we really want. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing this journey with me, and I hope that there'll be more to come in the future. So thanks for watching, I guess, and see you later. Sarah out.